Sundry headlines hug the front pages of the dailies this morning. Let's begin with the Guardian newspaper. Only 7 of 20 subsidiaries viable as NNPCL battles 22 trillion naira debt. That story has its details on the inside pages, but the infographics on the front page gives you an idea. Look at the front page of the Daily Independent. Naira devaluation floating put FG's $1 trillion economy target at risk. And the details continue on the inside pages. The Abuja Inquirer, Nigeria at 64. No cheers, only despair. According to Nigerians, FG Murik warned against protests. No going back, says organizers. And the details of that continue on the inside pages. The Nigerian News Direct has FG delivers 64 CNG buses to labor student leaders amid rising fuel prices. Tinubu reiterates commitment to easing cost of living as unions express growing frustration over fuel hikes. That story is on page 2. Front page of This Nigeria. Hard times, parents groan over rising school fees, transport. Seek loans, help from religious bodies to meet obligations. Pressure shifts to public schools. Story is on page 2. The Nigerian Tribune has state creation, police top agenda as senators begin retreat on new constitution. State police in line with global practice, those against it are playing the ostrich. From Senate, that's according to Senate leader. Southeast, South senators demand new states. Look at the front page of Daily Trust. Residents NAF disagree as airstrike kills scores in Kaduna. 23 worshippers among victims, according to locals. We only hit terrorists' base, that's from the Air Force. State government silent. But the front page picture you see right there is from Beirut in Lebanon. Find the details right there on the front page. Blueprint newspaper. FG hands over 64 CNG buses to NLC, TUC, NANS to distribute 2,000 CNG tricycles to youth. It's a promise kept, says Information Minister. Details continue on page 6. The Daily Times has more than 40% of Nigerians now enjoy 20 hours of power supply daily. That's from Adelabu. Credits achievements in power sector to radical bold steps taken by Tinubu's administration. The story has details on page 2. The Leadership newspaper has October 1 protest. Hold dialogue with protesters now. CSOs tell Tinubu. Stories on page 4. Varsity students oppose plan. Police assure of adequate security. FG distributes 64 CNG buses to workers, students. New Telegraph has tale of unfulfilled dreams at 64. How poor leadership, faulty structure, others slowed Nigeria's growth. And look at the front page. And look at the riders right there. Okorie, Shetima, Ezugwu decry missed opportunities. Sanwo-Olu, Mba, Oborevori, Aliyah focus on rebuilding nation. Nigeria's brightest days ahead. That's from Akpabio. Find the details of that story. Continue on the inside pages of the paper. Business Day. Why CBN is losing battle to stabilize Naira. Find the details on the front page. Continues on the inside pages of the paper today. Look at the front page of the Vanguard newspaper. October 1. Police deploy in states as organizers insist on protest. And look at the riders. Government failed to address protesters' demands, as from Adeji Adeyanju. Hopes more detained protesters will be released today. Refrain from any acts of violence, that's from the federal government. Give FG more time to fix economy, that's according to Kogi Police. Restriction of protests to 2 designated venues still stands, as from the Lagos State government. CP Lagos meet organizers assures on security, professionalism. Jigawa police deployment today. Don't join any protest. Now tells varsity students. Find details of that story on page 5 of the Vanguard newspaper today. And these are the papers we have for you today.
Well, there's certainly a lot to take in as we, look to October the 1st. I mean, you can see the papers clearly reflecting the stories already around October 1 and how a lot of Nigerians truly feel as we approach October 1. And, you know, you cannot blame people. You cannot put down their feelings. Their feelings are genuine and they're valid. I mean, how do you ignore a story? Hard times, parents groan over rise in school fees, transport, seek loans for help from religious bodies to meet obligations. You have this one from a New Telegraph, tale of unfulfilled dreams at 64, how poor leadership, faulty structure, others slowed Nigeria's growth. So all of these stories are already there, and frankly, they're beginning to turn into a litany of woes. And I think that the older you get, the more susceptible you are to losing hope in this country. But truth is, I mean, I have also I've asked myself that very critical question. On my way to work this morning, I was just driving and I was thinking about what my real thoughts were for Nigeria at 64. And I was asking myself, have I seen this country in a worse shape than it currently is today? The answer for me is yes, I have. I've lived through 25 years of Nigeria's democracy, I mean in the Fourth Republic, and I've also had the opportunity of living at least 15 years in our military rule. And I know that things have been pretty bad, economically speaking. It will be arguable. I mean, there are those who had it good in the military era. There are those who argue that they had it better. They will even tell you that the era of Sani Abacha was better than this.
I would have thought.
Exactly. I beg to disagree. I mean, because when people felt what they felt, I mean, it was a time when Nigerians resorted to using sawdust to cook. I still remember that. I know where I lived in that particular time. And I know that they named that sawdust Abacha stove. That was what it was called in the places where it was used. So, and what was people couldn't voice their discontent. So these are the thoughts. I mean, I was asking myself, my hope as a young person grew that this country was going to be better. There have been times when I have been very depressed about the state of things. There are times when I lose hope. But then I look at the fact that now I have children. And interestingly, the children today are celebrating Independence Day a day ahead of Independence Day because they won't be in school. So their schools, a number of schools, I'm sure a number of parents have had to do this now, have had to dress up their children in maybe traditional outfits or some celebratory outfits and give them flags and cook some food, you know, and take them to school. The question is, what am I going to give to my children? Am I going to sell them the same hopelessness that is prevailing in the air? Rightfully so, don't get me twisted. I mean, you cannot sell hope where there is none, but that you can actually make them look forward to something. It will be grossly unfair to tell children that there is no hope, or to say that there is nothing to look forward to. I think that what we can do right now is, you know, pick up ourselves by the bootstraps. And I know that this is something that leaders should be doing at their level. And we should begin getting this sort of pep talk from I'm sure we'll be getting it tomorrow from the president. But even as, you know, individuals and leaders in our various spheres, we need to give ourselves, you know, moments to really think about what it is that we're sending. Because if we do not, you know, find a way to raise the hope of young people who really still have the energy and the vigor and, you know, have their lives ahead of them. I still have my life ahead of me. I'm still a young person, but I know now that that is relative. So, I mean, I'm not a spring chicken, but I also know that I have a duty to inspire hope in the future, to say, look, I'm doing what I can each day to make this country a better place. I want to believe that the next person beside me is going to do the same thing. And there have been many moments where we see young people do that. We see it in the Olympics, people who have gone to compete, regardless of whether they've been sponsored by Nigeria or not. Just for them to be able to wear that Nigerian flag is enough for them. So if those people are putting their all, regardless of what it is that is pushing them, just having the platform to be able to compete with or compete on, then what exactly will be our own excuse not to put in our best? So I would go with this particular headline on the front page of this Nigeria. Let's not lose hope. Our brightest days are still ahead of us.
You know, while all of that may be the case, it's somewhat challenging, but at the same time, it's hugely important as well for us to highlight this part. If you look at the bottom of the front page of Daily Trust, where they were talking about heart diseases spiking in the country. And then they were talking about the prevalence of all of that. And so there are several factors. These days, people don't even know because, I mean, how are they supposed to know?
Stress.
Yeah, and then this other part, genetically modified foods. They're all over the place, but people don't know because they're not labeled. You just see them and you think that it's the usual one. And so the authorities there need to do a lot more so that people can have a choice. In other climes where this is, it's clearly labeled. They dare not label them, but here it's as if you have no choice. That's just it. Go ahead with it. And so they're talking about how it has spiked. And so almost, I think they say if they were to put a figure to it, it will be almost like 1 million every year are susceptible to these kind of stuff. The front page of Daily Trust, at the bottom strip, you'll see all of that there, where it's of huge concern, and we need to pay attention to that as well. Ayo.
I was having this conversation on lifestyle, and we were talking about, and someone was telling us that, you know, people who are susceptible to depression and high blood pressure, their ages are as low as 10. So these things that you're mentioning could just as well be part of the reason. And they're saying that it's no longer a disease for the aged, but even young people now are susceptible. This could be part of the reason. But, you know, I would go with the front page of this Nigerian newspaper that Mark talked about, and particularly because of the independent nature of it. The writer that says that the pressure is now on public schools. Question is, what are we teaching the children? Pressure shifts to public schools. So more and more people should be able to go to public schools now. Fine. There was a time when the rise in the price of school fees chased some people to take their children to public schools. And what would it do? It will help them to also contribute to developing those schools, those public schools, so that their children, so that it looks befitting for their children. And I think it is one way that we should even consider. Now, that's on the one hand. On the other hand is, what are we teaching them? Back when I was growing up, we had subjects like moral instructions, like civic education. I'm not sure how much of those things are there now. What we teach children in schools now is security. What exactly are we telling them by that? I mean, it's not a bad thing. It's not wrong to teach them about security. But how about patriotism? In what ways are we teaching our children about patriotism? We are telling them to wear traditional wares to school and all of those things, and that's amazing. But then, that's the dress. What are we telling them? And what's the hope that they have for the future of this country? Oh, definitely there is hope for this country. Several people have said several things over the years, even since as far back as the 60s, 50s, that Nigeria is going to rise out of this murk that we're in. There will come a time when we will be known for corruption. That time is now. But then there is also a time when we will be known for doing the right things, and that time is coming. But where will you be when that time comes? So what are we teaching the children? That's one. Secondly, let's not forget that it's the young people that hold the hope for this nation. What we plant into them is what we will reap. That's my take this morning, Chamberlain.
All right, so thank you. We're back in just a moment. Don't go away.